I am driving the Mini Cooper Coupe SD, which is 143 brake horsepower, 134 miles per hour top speed, 65 miles per gallon, 0 to 60 in 7.9, 17-inch low profile wheels, and a roof that looks like, don't tell me, a baseball cap that's turned the other way around. Boring, boring, boring. There are far more interesting things to say about this car than that. And also it's a coupe, not a coupe. Sorry, I'm being terribly British here, but it is a Mini. Oh, hang on, it's German. Well, I'm just stopped off at a motorway service station somewhere north of Nantwich in the Midlands on the M6, and I just can't get a cooked breakfast yet because it's not quite opening time. It's about 10 to 7. I think they open about 7 o'clock. So this is my third stop off. The car's going really well. Fantastic drive. You know, all these criticisms that it's very noisy. I mean, yeah, occasionally, depending on the road surface, the tyres, I mean, they're only low profile tyres, 17-inch wheels. There's a certain amount of noise, but you know, I can hear my radio, my music, no problem at all. Depends what you're used to. I was having a bit of problems setting my cruise control, and also when I stopped off at previous service stations, leaving my little dog in the car, he activated the motion sensor. And my God, is that alarm loud. So I managed to find out how to disable that, because the handbook, I mean, is really very impressive, and you know, it's got everything in it, beautifully illustrated. I mean, look at that, really good. You know, we're spoiled. I mean, look at the thickness of that. Goodness me. Get a life. We're lucky to be alive. The seats are really comfortable. I mean, they're much more comfortable than the average domestic seating, except of course for my chairs, my rocking chairs, which have got very good lumbar support. Rear vision is adequate. Yeah, it's a bit of a letterbox, the rear window, and I have to stoop a little to see out of it, but with these huge oval side mirrors, there's no problem seeing what's behind. The gear stick, the gear change is very positive, very firm, very easy. It's so important on a car. You know, this kind of saucepan satellite dish type dial is your kind of computer control center, so I can I even play my own music. I mean, even with the radio on, it's as though you're in a concert room, and yet people say, oh, you know, it's noisy on the motorway at speed, you can't hear yourself. That's rubbish. It's the stereo setup with the loudspeakers, it's just fantastic. I put some of my favourite music on a memory stick, and one of the genres I like is gypsy jazz, which is so little played on the radio. I can't believe it. It's a fantastic style of 1930s, 1940s music. One of the joys of doing this journey countless times in my youth from south of England to Loch Lomond is I'd always see interesting cars, but they're all such look-alike vehicles. I mean, I've seen perhaps 2 or 3 at the most, slightly different cars. And and also I haven't seen another Mini Coupe at all, so clearly this is quite an individual car. Well, I just stopped off at a little cafe on the way to Kendal or around Kendal. I took a detour off the motorway off the M6 because I just could not get a decent breakfast anywhere on the motorway service stations. Predictable, I guess. And also I wanted to top up with fuel and do a mileage check as well, and of course the fuel's cheaper off the motorways. So I did a little tot up. I've done about 250 miles and used about 22 litres, so I think that's round about 51 miles per gallon. I haven't been booting it, I mean I haven't been hanging around, but my first impressions is I expected it to be a little bit better than that. Oh yeah, I meant to say that at this cafe it was a bit of a walk down memory lane because it was near Kirby Lonsdale in the early 60s when I would ride my two-stroke 125cc motorbike from Wiltshire up to Loch Lomond, and I'd stop off at a roadside cafe and get a fish and chips for about 2 shillings and threepence. That's old currency, of course, and they gave you a pint cup of tea. Now at this cafe I paid £10 for a very generous breakfast, which also had a rather massive cup of coffee, certainly a bigger cup of coffee than the south of England. So there's an interesting observation, the north-south divide. In the south of England you get a smaller cup of coffee. In the north they're a bit more generous. Now of course they're all southerners to me because actually I'm a Scotsman. Yeah, not very good accent because I've lived in the south of England for many years, but I'm actually 100% Scots. Okay, so I'm going to meander my way back to the motorway and head on up north to Glasgow. Oh, Shap, that brings back memories. One of the highest roads in Britain. My Morgan three-wheelers used to boil over at Shap, so it really does bring back memories. This is probably the nicest patch of road to drive on anywhere in Britain, the stretch from Kendal just north of Carlisle. Really fantastic, wide open, beautiful smooth surface. Oh, I wish I could use the speed. You've got to be very, very careful you don't get nabbed for speeding. I mean, a car like this is probably a license killer. I will say this Mini really does capture the spirit of the original Mini and also a sports car. I mean, the Mini is in my blood. I've had no less than 13 Minis, mostly in my youth. Started off with an 850 Mini, my first teaching job in London. It cost me about 70 quid. I've had 4 versions of the Mini Cooper S. The quickest was the 1071S. That was quicker up to 60 than any type Jaguar. I've had a minivan, a mini pickup, and probably not a lot of people know this, but this Mini Coupe with the kind of cut-off roof line is very similar to a custom-built Mini in the 60s called the Mini Sprint, and I think that had about 4 inches cut off the roof. It had wide wheels and darkened windows and really did look fantastic. So this is maybe why I was so taken with this particular car when I first saw it about 3 years ago. If you want fun, I don't know where the word luxury comes into it, but this is a very comfortable car and it's a lot of fun. left turn down here, I think. Pretty sure. And Carbeth is up that hill, the top of that hill. But this is actually quite a steep hill up here. And being a bit naughty, I'm holding the steering wheel with one hand, the camera in the other. But I mean, that easily cruises up there. Now, I'm still in the same gear, can you believe it? Now that's pushing it. What gear is that? That's third gear, because I had my camera in the right hand, steering wheel in the left hand. I'm not quite clever enough to change gear with my knee. There we are, we're in a better gear, second gear. It's so beautiful around here. And then we should get a glimpse of the loch in a moment. I spent my youth fishing on the loch. Now you can hear the road noise through the tyres, but you know, it's okay. It's not like this all the time. So this is Carbeth Estate, where all the huts are. Carbeth huts came about because my grandfather, Alan Barnes Graham, offered his land for Glaswegians to build timber huts on, I think around the 1930s. They are now community owned, as my cousin, who inherited Carbeth Estate, sold the land a few years ago to the Hutters. And my mother, who I never knew, was brought up at Carbeth, and she often caught big fish on Carbeth Loch. So this is a very special place to me. So we've arrived. The last half mile is literally a track. Used to come up from the age of 13 on the steam train to stay with my uncle. Fishing, very, very lucky. Hasn't changed, you see, it's in 50 odd years. This is a good test of the suspension of this Mini Coupe. There's Carbeth Loch. A few nice trout in there. I have the opportunity to build a timber chalet on my cousin's land here, which has been a lifelong dream of mine, and at my ripe old age, which I won't disclose, I have the opportunity. I can do anything in wood. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant, but the last challenge for me, because I built boats, musical instruments, guitars, furniture, roofs, but I want to build a really innovative timber chalet. And so, apart from visiting my cousin socially, I've come up to have a look at the plot that he's going to offer me to build a small, let's call it an innovative shed, and it will probably be pack flat. There's Carbeth House, and we are at the end of the journey. We have arrived. Mini Cooper and me. My God, is there going to be a space? There is. Squirrel, we've arrived. Okay. Well, good to see you, Alan.
And good to see you too. What's the name, Jeremy?
Yes, cousin Jeremy, actually. Now let's cut to the chase. And what are you going to show me?
I'm going to show you the site of your chalet.
Oh, right. This is before we've had fish dinner.
Yes.
Or fish lunch. Been beautiful drive, really lovely day, really. This 500-mile journey has given me plenty of opportunity to get to know the car, all these knobs and controls everywhere. I mean, it really is a luxury. Everything just a kind of, fingertip control. The sports mode, for instance, that tightens up the steering considerably. I didn't realise, but the little the engine cuts out automatically unless you press another knob. And the heater, the temperature control is fantastic. You've just got this dial, and you can either go, warmer or colder. It just I guess so many people take this for granted, but it's so novel to me. The boot space is unusually large. It's got this funny little hole that pokes through to put your golf clubs. Well, sorry, I don't play golf, but I would have liked to put my fishing rods in, but I realised that would leave it open, and I believe some of the drumming noise levels come from the boot area. But I mean, there is a bit of waste of space. Behind the seats are these kind of dummy, what look like headrests, but apparently it's covering for the mechanism for the soft top. Well, of course, this isn't a soft top, so it's redundant. And I reckon if you took that away and repositioned the two stereo loudspeakers, you'd have a huge boot area or hatch area, and it would be a real little low-level, low-flying hot hatch. While I was staying with my cousin near Loch Lomond, I just drove around the countryside and really enjoyed the drive. The interior trim is really very high quality and very attractive looking, lovely soft feel. It's given me ideas for designing the interior of the kit car, the Rappo Belva, that I'm rebuilding. I think in a nutshell, the Mini Cooper Coupe is a driver's car, and I think the fact that this is a diesel and it wears the S badge with that incredibly torquey 2-litre engine, it still qualifies as a pretty formidable, compact little sports car. It's a great drive. Well, as I said before, the purpose of this trip was both social, but also to look at a plot of land to possibly build a timber chalet. So please watch this space if you're interested in the woodworking side of my interests. Thanks for watching.